Hi, welcome back. We're taking a look today at a fundamental law of mind. In other words, how mind operates. It's not a law in the sense that we pass laws here in the world with a legislative body that gets together and makes up, totally invents a law, which then we all get together and choose to follow just because, in the fashion that the world seems to operate. Now, we're talking about a law in the sense that this is just the way it works. And when we understand and appreciate this, we're able to make a better decision in the present moment. Remember, there's only one choice. But when we understand what happens when we choose the incorrect, the hurtful, painful, unhelpful choice, when we really understand that, then we'll be that much more likely to remember in the present moment to choose the thought system of the Holy Spirit. In other words, to choose God instead of the ego, to choose your strength as Christ instead of your limited little ego self. Love or fear, right? Light or dark. That one choice. So we have this same lesson presented to us in multiple different ways, because today may be the day through this particular presentation that something just clicks. It's a beautiful thing when it happens, isn't it? No doubt you've experienced this already more than once on the spiritual path, and it's likely that you have, or A Course in Miracles wouldn't hold the kind of appeal to you that it does. You know what I'm talking about, that moment. It's an aha moment, or whatever we want to call it, where suddenly something just makes sense. And you realize, oh yeah, I knew that. And you did. There's a famous quote from the Zen master Suzuki Roshi, and it's from a very, very wonderful and powerful book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, which maybe some of you have read. Whether you've studied Buddhism or not, it's a spiritual classic, and it's really pretty cool. And he says you'll know something before you learn it. Right? You know something before you learn it. So, what we call learning here on the path is a series of these recognitions of, oh, yeah, I knew that. I've always known. Yes, it's just like that. So, what's this law of mind? Well, it's the fundamental law of sharing, and how we view and experience this is completely dependent on which teacher we choose. Hence the repeated emphasis here with A Course in Miracles on your relationship with your inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, your guide or guides. And in fact, there's only one teacher, but you may call your one teacher by multiple different names if you wish. It's still the same teacher. It's that relationship that we emphasize here. It is, because the teacher that you choose will determine how you experience this fundamental law of mind. This is simply the way mind operates. If you follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit, it's extension, the extension of love. If you follow the ego, it's projection, which is always to exclude and to make separate, and also to retain a sense of separation. This law of sharing says and means that the mind either projects or extends. This is how it operates. It's how the mind lives, and mind is life. So we're either projecting or extending, and it's inescapable. This is simply the way the mind operates. So we cannot have it be any differently. Our one choice is our choice of guide. The voice for God or nothing. A whole lot of nothing. That would be the ego. Literally. So the ego projects to exclude. It wants to retain a sense of separation. So feelings of guilt, feelings of fear, we want to get away from us, as far away from us as we possibly can. So we put them off onto something or someone else. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's my ex's fault. It's the government's fault. And that's a big one, isn't it? Right? It's the economy's fault. It's the weather's fault. It's the wind's fault. It's someone else's responsibility. They're to blame for my suffering. The ego projects to exclude, seeing yourself as separate, as an ego, as an individual self-sustaining survival unit. We automatically assume that everyone else is an individual self-sustaining survival unit and that they're out to get your stuff. Pretty much. So that's the way the ego sees it. That's projection. That's putting off, so we imagine, onto someone else our own discomfort, our own fear, our own guilt, our own insecurities. We think we're getting rid of them, yet we're not. And why is that? Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Ideas leave not their source. If you're just joining me for the first time, you'll hear that again and again and again. It's one of those ideas from A Course in Miracles that's fundamental and powerful. And when it really, truly begins to sink in, it's beautiful. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. So the ego only thinks that it's getting rid of the problem. The problem's still in the mind of the thinker. We have it in our mind. That's where it arose. It's where it stays. Ideas leave not their source. The ego only imagines that it's getting rid of its own guilt and fear by pushing it off onto someone else. So what happens if we choose our inner teacher's perspective? What if we choose the Holy Spirit's point of view here? So to the Holy Spirit, you give away freely and totally. You give what you value in order to keep it in your mind. You give what you value: love, forgiveness, our oneness as Christ. You give it away in order to keep it in your mind. Same principle. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Ideas leave not their source. We give away freely, willingly, and wholly, totally. We give away what we value in order to keep it in your mind. Giving is how you keep it. It's why we're instructed to forgive our brother. Giving love, extending the miracle, is how we keep it in our mind. So we have a choice to either keep guilt and fear and judgment and blame in our mind, or to keep in our mind the love of God. That's the choice. in the present moment. And quite naturally, we're invited to choose to keep the love of God in our mind, the miracle, forgiveness, our limitlessness. It's the choice we're invited to make right now. So, depending on the teacher that we select, this fundamental law of mind produces either abundance or scarcity, our choice. Yeah, really, it's our choice. We're fond of thinking that it's not our choice. I understand. I can feel the wheels turning, that victim card of the world is so difficult. Well, and we've certainly set it up that way, haven't we? Right? But we're not the victims of the world we see. This is intended to provide you with a sense of the power of your mind. In other words, having chosen all of this drama, we can choose to set it aside. You have that power of choice, which has never been taken away from you. You could choose to see yourself as a victim of the world, powerless and utterly helpless. But you're not powerless. And you're not helpless. You could choose to convince yourself of this and so come to believe that, yet there's always going to be this shred of truth in your mind that keeps calling you back to right here, right now, where you're listening to the guidance of your inner teacher and hearing the call to awaken. And you are. And that's a beautiful thing. So every mind must project or extend, and which we do will determine the entire outcome of every moment that follows here in time. There is actually no such thing as time. That's a separation device and an illusion, just as space is an illusion, just as the ego itself is an illusion. Individuality is an illusion. Separation is an illusion. The essence of accepting what A Course in Miracles refers to as the atonement for ourselves is that fundamental, central to that is acknowledging that the separation never occurred. All of this never happened. We can choose awakening right now in the present moment, and that is exactly what we're invited to do. So the mind can either project its own guilt and fear, or it can extend forgiveness. It can extend love, which is the happier choice. Exactly. That's the choice that we're invited to make. Okay. So thank you, as always, for tuning in here. Thank you to all of you who have recently subscribed, by the way. There've been a number of you who've joined us recently. So welcome. What you'll see here are several videos a week, and we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles right now. Sometimes it's literally one paragraph at a time, because each and every paragraph, indeed every sentence of this course, contains the totality of the thought system. So here in the world where we repeat things because we need to repeat them in order to have them stick in our mind, we have a lot to say. So welcome and thank you. And if you haven't joined us, the subscription button's this red arrow over here in the corner of your screen. Feel welcome to click on that. And yeah, do that and join us. It's a growing international community. And if you have comments or questions, then please feel welcome to leave them here. and I'll be able to see them. And we've had some excellent questions here on this channel and some dialogue, and that's really, really important. It is. If you've got questions, that means that you're doing the work, because it generates questions. And there are days, aren't there, where it feels like this work, this path, generates more questions than it answers. So if that's one of those days for you today, if you've got questions, please feel welcome to ask them. And in fact, if it feels to you like the question is too basic or that you should know, that's the question you should definitely ask, because I guarantee you there are people that have been studying this material for 20 or 30 years that are wondering the same thing. They are. And perhaps your asking the question is going to have that response stick in their mind. Maybe something clicks for them too. So you never know. You never know. There's a whole world of people out there that may benefit from a question that you chose to ask. So invite them. All right. Thank you, as always, for joining me, and I will talk to you all very soon.